It's a beautiful Tuesday morning in the city of Lagos, southwest Nigeria. My name is Damlola Ogushaki, and this morning I'll be reviewing the front pages of the dailies and also analyzing them. And of course, I'm starting with Vanguard on the paper review. Vanguard this morning is leading with floods, panic as corpses float in BAYELSA and Delta cemeteries. Bumadi Burutu Patani local government area sacked. Victims sleep on Bumadi Bridge as Christian Association of Nigeria, Ibori Indigenes appeal to state government and political leaders for help. You can see that story on page 5. And we have a photo story here on the front page of Vanguard of a flooded house. And the writer says, some houses in Ibide community, Isoko South local government area of Delta State yesterday. And on page 8, we have shutdown of broadcast stations in Zamfara, threat to democracy. That's coming from the editors. On page 10, we have Yoruba Nation rally. Police caused says girls' deaths. That's coming from Corona. On page 9, we have Labour Party, PDP tackle Buhari over claims of meeting yearnings of Nigerians. We'll deal with bandits, other subversive elements if elected. That's coming from Tinubu. We have Nnamdi Kanu, United States ex-envoy, envoy Clark Ezefe, family caution federal government. You can see that on page 11. Stories above are the big interview. We have how Nigeria can grow the economy, reduce poverty. That's coming from Laju Wonu and Wunok MD. You can see that inside Vanguard. On page 19, we have inflation hits 20.7% as flooding adds to pressures. On page 26, how we tackle insecurity, revive industries if elected. That's coming from article. Oil theft, September crude oil production drops by 24.73%. And lastly, on the front page of the Vanguard newspaper, we have Nigeria has failed. We change narrative. That's according to Peter Obi. And you can see that story on page 8 of the Vanguard newspaper. Away from that, we move to The Guardian. The Guardian this morning is leading with inflation peaks mildly as flood sounds food crisis alarm bell. Challenge threatens Nigerians rise self-sufficiency. Farming communities completely cut off from urban areas. Expert wars food inflation next year. Expert one. You can see that on page 6. On page 60, we have Tinubu Atiku Obi text strength in Kaduna. Fresh oil spill occurs in Bodo community. That can be seen on page 5. Kogi, gunmen invade church, kill 3, injures others. Stories above, we have Labour Party wants Iyaloja General prosecuted for allegedly forcing traders to back Tinubu. You can see that on page 4. 5 died, 3 injured in Kogi auto crash. You can see that on page 9. Lastly, on The Guardian, shutdown of 4 broadcast stations in Zamfara, threat to democracy, says Guild of Editors. You can see that on page 3 of The Guardian newspaper. And away from there, we move to The Nation. The Nation this morning is leading with My Plan for Prosperous United Nigeria by Tinubu. Ruling parties standard bearer unfolds blueprints for out-of-school children. Why not should vote APC candidates by El-Rufai. You can see that on page 6. NLNG's force mature may push up gas price. You can see that on page 6. On page 4, gunmen have abduct 3 kids in Kwara. Also, 121 get first class as Abuad graduates 1,673. And the stories above, we have Wike, PDP should apologize for Atiku comments. You can see that on page 7. And lastly, on the front page of The Nation newspaper, we have how we unlock Nigerians' greatness, says Obi. You can see that on page 44. And away from The Nation, we move straight to the Punch newspaper. The Punch this morning is leading with 2023 presidency. Tinubu Obi unfold economic restructuring agenda to Nigeria. APC Labour Party candidates speak on restructuring, corruption, agriculture, and power. I supported Atiku. It's payback time now. Let him endorsement, says ex-Lagos State Governor. Atiku Saraki party members fume as thugs attack PDP Kaduna and Zamfara rallies. You can see that on pages 2 and 21. On the front page, we have photo stories with the writer that says a ministerial retreat. Buhari backs Nigerian air. Shibajo laments forex woes. You can see that on page 28. Police arrest Lagos businessman over wife's death. You can see that on pages 4 and 5. Tuition hike. Protesting Ogun police students disrupt exams. Demand reversal. You can see that on page 5. Stories above. We have Nigeria's debt risky, unsustainable. That's according to reports. And lastly, on the front page of the Punch newspaper, we have inflation hits at 20.77% as food supply FX crisis worsen. You can see that on page 27 of the Punch newspaper. And that's all we have on the front pages of the dailies this morning. Join us after the break as we analyze the stories. All right, welcome back. If you're just joining me, this is Today in the News on Vanguard Live. I'm Dablola Ogunshaki. Joining me to analyze the front pages of the dailies this morning is Mr. Dayo Akintobi. He's the publisher of Ilukweju Today, Lekki Today, and Ikeja GRA Today. Good morning, Mr. Dayo.
Good morning, Damilola. Good morning to all our viewers.
Yes, thank you very much. Vanguard this morning is leading with a very, very disturbing and sad story, and that's of the flood in Bayelsa, Delta State, and some other parts of Nigeria. And of course, this flood have continued to ravage most parts of the country, especially the residents of Aeroplane Road in Yeregua. And according to what we heard, they said, we can just find corpses on the road, floating, even in cemeteries. What do you think about this?
Yeah, that is really a horrific sight, seeing corpses floating past. Apparently, there's a cemetery in Bayelsa where graves were dug only 3 feet deep instead of the 6 feet regulation, and so the corpses were relatively close to the surface. So when this flood came and submerged the entire cemetery, it pushed the bodies up to the surface and they began floating. And I can imagine the hearts and minds of the relatives of the deceased, how they would feel to know that the corpses of their dearly beloved loved ones is now subjected to the elements and is floating all over the place. But having said that, this flood situation is turning out to be a real humanitarian crisis. And the problem is government seems to be slow to respond in terms of relief for those who are affected. Even yesterday, former Governor James Buhari was appealing to the state government and to the council and to the federal government to try and do something to help these poor people. Many, as of now, over 600 people have lost their lives across the affected areas. I hear a couple of million have been displaced. There's been so much lost property. Farms are submerged, entire communities are submerged, and there are people who are sleeping on top of a bridge just to stay above the water level, which continues to rise. So the thing it brings forth is how unprepared we are, and that is typical of our cultural predisposition, is that we're never adequately prepared. We always get caught pants down when things like this happen. And what is even more unconscionable is that in the case of the flood, we knew it was coming. First of all, Cameroon releases water from this dam every year. Secondly, we were notified by NIMET months ago that this rainy season was going to be particularly intensive. They said we'd have over 200 days of rain this year. So there was enough advance warning for us to have been taking preemptive steps to encourage people to move to higher ground, put sandbags in certain areas. There are defensive things we could have done which we didn't do, which we never do. And then when the emergency comes, we now start running helter-skelter to try and address these issues. So we need to learn to be more proactive instead of reactive. And I just feel for the people. There's a particular community leader in Bayelsa who's been running around himself and rallying the forces, and they're putting sandbags and they're trying to divert water away from their community. They're doing their level best within their own ability. But on your own as an individual, you are limited in what you can do. You're limited by resources, you are limited by manpower, you are limited by expertise. So we really need government intervention. At this point, it doesn't matter about jurisdiction. It's no longer, when you have humanitarian crisis, it's no longer an issue of which government is responsible, which arm or which tier of government. Everybody needs to band together, local government, state, federal, put all the resources to bear to try and give some succor to this very blighted areas that have been affected by this flood.
Before now, 2012 was actually the one that we would have said the most devastating year. But now they're saying this year now have actually surpassed 2012. So it's like we didn't even learn anything from what happened in 2012.
Absolutely not. Because yes, if we had learned our lessons then, and knowing that Cameroon releases its water from its dam, first thing is, when this thing happened in 2012, whatever government was in power then, I don't know why they didn't consider building our own dam along the lines of where the water is released, so that there could be more control over that water when it's released. I think the last dam that was built in Nigeria is Shiroro Dam, which was probably, I think, in the 80s that it was built. Since then, no dam has been built in Nigeria. So water is difficult to control. We don't have that much control over water, especially from rivers that don't originate in Nigeria. Our two main rivers, the Benue and the Niger, they don't originate in Nigeria, they're just flowing through. So we have little control from their origination point. Anything can happen. Like we see in Cameroon now, they released water. We don't have control. Our rivers will overflow their banks when any external disruption occurs outside our borders. But we bear the brunt. So, like I said before, there are palliative steps we should have taken, including considering building additional dams along the paths of these rivers. There's so many things, but we didn't learn the right lessons in 2012 to where now, 10 years later, a mere decade later, we have an even worse calamity on our hands. I mean, if you're looking at the pure devastation, 600 lives lost, millions of dollars of property destroyed. Look at the crisis we're going to have on food shortly. Rice farms submerged, yam crops destroyed, livestock trapped in Lokoja can't move here, they're dying in the trucks, produce is rotting in the trucks because they can't pass. So already we're starting to see inflation in the market, inflationary trends in the market, where scarcity is beginning to set in because the food production value chain has been disrupted. So when we see and we have advance warning of all these kind of things, especially 2012 told us, it shouldn't have taken us 10 years to be caught with our pants down again and not prepared when we had enough opportunity to do something about it. But like I said, it seems to be in our nature that we react after things go bad, as opposed to pre-planning and working against.
So do we really have a crisis team in Nigeria, crisis management team in Nigeria? And if we do, what are they really doing?
Well, what's an organization like NEMA? NEMA is National Emergency Management Agency. What is it incorporated for? What does it collect a budget for? What does it collect ESTA code for training for its people for? These are crisis management agencies. Even here in Lagos, we have those yellow trucks that go around the expressway, getting people out of accidents and things like that. LRU, rescue unit. So we, on paper, we have allocated power to emergency services, but are they effective? So we need to begin to ask, how do they justify their budgets? Every year, money is allocated to those agencies. What do they do with those monies? Firefighting, flood abatement, road crashes, all these kind of things. We're lucky in Nigeria. We don't have many natural disasters. We don't have hurricanes. We don't have earthquakes. We don't have typhoons. We don't have tsunamis. Maybe because God has blessed us with such excellent weather and excellent natural environment, maybe it has made us rest on our oars and become complacent and think that, oh, whatever comes we can handle. But nature, when it unleashes its fury, it really requires management, crisis management. Maybe because we don't really have recurring crises of nature, it has made us not to take it seriously. But as we can see from this flood, nature can unleash its fury in a very serious way that requires hands-on intervention.
All right, let's move away from that. President Muhammadu Buhari yesterday said he has met yearnings and aspirations of Nigerians, scoring his administration high in performance. And of course, Labour Party and PDP presidential candidates are against his statement. But what do you think about the president's talks?
Well, when he said that yesterday, the room where I was at erupted into a cacophony of laughter. Laughter was all I could hear from everywhere in the room. Like, who is he kidding? But then again, you have to be balanced a little bit and you have to look at it objectively. My view is that no government is all bad and no government is all good. There is no government in the history of the world that has achieved everything it set out to achieve. And there's no government that has failed at everything it set out to achieve. So having said that, if we say we should evaluate his scorecard objectively, yes, he achieved one or two things, but he also failed at one or two things. That's the truth. So we look at it and say, okay, he's built the second Niger bridge. He's fixed the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway. He's building Abuja-Kaduna Road. He's set the railroad going again. He's done some things in the ports. He has signed a deal with Siemens to improve electricity. We haven't seen it yet.
Yeah.
But then even he beat his chest about oil and gas. And people are saying, but wait a minute. We are at the lowest point in terms of our daily barrel production. In 2005, we were doing 2.5 million barrels of oil a day. Today, it's about 900,000. So it's dropped drastically. How can you beat your chest about that? Then his retort to that is, well, I got the PIB signed, the Petroleum Industry Act. I got it signed into law. That act, when it is fully implemented, will improve our oil value chain and our oil, the entire oil sector will be completely restructured based on that law. How many governments in the past, I think 12 years or so, that law was trying to be passed, he managed to get it passed. So he's beating his chest about that. But politics, if you don't blow your own trumpet, who will blow it for you?
Nobody.
So exactly. So beat your chest about the things you have done. A typical politician will even claim credit for the things he didn't do or the things he did that affected us badly. Yes. So to me, it's all politics. It's up to us to now be intelligent and evaluate and say, no, you can't take credit for that one. You didn't do that one, or you didn't do it well, or you didn't start it, or you didn't finish it. Okay, I give you credit for this, you did this, you did. So let's take it with a pinch of salt and let us ourselves do critical analysis. I always to put everything back in the hands of the voter. Politician is free to say anything he wants to say, but I'm the fool if I accept it lock, stock, and barrel and just take it because you said it and believe it. So I have to do critical analysis on anything any politician tells me to do my own evaluation of whether it is true or it is not true. So the president was free to say anything he wanted. It's now up to me. And I have looked at it and I say, okay, I give you credit for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. No, I don't.
Talking about, politicians can say anything. I mean, yesterday, Vanguard led with the story of Atiku and Tinubu, them engaged in a verbal war. And that's because Atiku over the weekend, during an interactive session with Arewa, said, that Northerners needed someone of his stature and not a Yoruba or Igbo president. I'm sure you saw that. What do you think about it?
Yes, I did. Well, I think he spoke out of turn, and I don't think he did himself a good service by what he said. I really don't think he meant any harm per se. I think he shouldn't have said such a thing in public, but I don't think it takes away from his long-standing reputation as a unifier. I don't think we should judge him on the basis of that one statement, but if I were him to put the controversy to bed, I would apologize, because truth be told, he spoke out of turn. It was not a good thing to say publicly. It comes across as divisive rhetoric, especially all the more critical for somebody who is known or who is selling himself on the reputation of being the one to unify a divided country. So it wasn't a good thing to say. However, I'll put it to you that all the candidates at this point in time are trying to woo the North. Even after Atiku had his misstep day before yesterday, Bola Ahmed Tinubu and Peter Obi also faced the same crowd, and they also had one or two misspeaks in their own presentations. The key thing is that everybody is trying to woo the North because the North represents a solid voting bloc, and Kaduna, Kano, Katsina, Sokoto, they are all very pivotal. If you can win the support of the Northern bloc as a candidate, and for that, I think we have to give the Northern elders credit for having held that sort of an event where they asked the candidates. If you remember, I've said it several times on this show, don't believe manifestos. Don't necessarily be taken in by political rhetoric or campaign oratory. Let's interrogate the candidates individually. And yesterday, they were asked questions and got opportunities to respond. So from their responses, we were able to evaluate their competencies. Unlike when they read speeches that a speechwriter has prepared for them, or they write manifestos that a professor in the university prepared for them. Yesterday, unprepared, because they didn't know what questions were coming. They were not prepared. They were not prepped ahead. Questions were just coming left and right from the audience, and so it gave us a chance to evaluate the content of their intellect, to also evaluate their understanding of the Nigerian situation. How clear are they on the issues that ail us as a people, and what solutions do they have in mind for addressing those issues? Those are the critical things by which you should decide on who we are going to vote in. So I credit the Northern Elders, and I wish Afenifere and Ohanaeze Ndigbo will also organize similar fora where we'll have opportunities to interrogate these candidates, because by and large, at a campaign rally, can you ask questions? It's just him slogan, hearing and shouting and dancing. That's what rallies are all about. Yes. You can't, from a rally, get to know what it is they have in mind. They just read speeches and fire up the troops and get people all worked up and excited. So that kind of event that held in Kaduna over the last 2 days, I think has done a lot for our democracy, and I would like to see more of such. Of course, the downside is that because they are ill-prepared, or not ill-prepared, but because it is spontaneous, they cannot fully anticipate what is going to be asked. So things fly out of their mouths that they may not otherwise have said in more prepared circumstances. Now, perhaps that gives us an opportunity to even see inside, deeper to their character, some of the things they may have been hiding from us on the surface. So it is an invaluable tool that I think we should explore a lot more. But for Atiku, I think he should just apologize and move on.
All right, let's talk about this one. The Nigerian Guild of Editors has expressed concern over the shutdown of 4 broadcast stations by Zamfara State Governor Bello Mutawalis, and asked him to immediately unseal the media houses. So this Zamfara State government, they shut the stations for covering a rally held by the governorship candidate of PDP, that's Dr. Dauda Lawan. What do you think about this, the act from the government?
The first problem, first of all, is that a state government doesn't have regulatory authority over any broadcast station. That's the NBC. The Nigerian Broadcasting Corporation is the one that has the authority to seal any station. And, well, the governor is saying that he banned all campaigns in the state for security reasons. Fine. You can ban the campaign, but if you go ahead and do the campaign and a broadcast station covers it, I don't see the illegality in that. So it looks like you're trying to muzzle free expression, looks like you're tampering with freedom of the press, because what authority do you have? Even assuming within your purview as a chief security officer of the state, you can ban campaign for security reasons. If that campaign goes to hold, are you now going to say that the people who serviced the campaign in different ways, the people who rented them the stadium or the venue, the vendors who came to sell pure water and gala, the newspaper people who came to cover, the Okada riders who rode people there. So all of a sudden, everybody is now illegal in your sight and is subject of sanction. So you left everybody else that serviced the campaign, the banned campaign, and you now picked up, said you shouldn't have broadcast it. So I think it's wrong in every way. In politics, granted, you seize the day, you use your power when you have it, and the best you can do to neutralize your opposition. So to me, I think it's more political than anything else, that he's just trying to frustrate. Because remember, it's a PDP rally. It was a PDP campaign, and he's an APC governor. So it was a PDP rally. So all I can read into it was that he's trying to frustrate the opposition. But frustrate the opposition, leave the media alone. What's the media got to do with the opposition? To frustrate the opposition, you've already banned their rally anyway, so you frustrated what they wanted to do. So what has the media got to do with this, except for the fact that you are now trying to control information dissemination. You're trying to control freedom of expression. And that is a threat to democracy. Anybody who tampers with the media is risking the very freedoms upon which our democracy lies. I think even the Constitution protects the media to a certain point. And I don't think that any governor should tamper with the operations of any broadcast station, any newspaper, any radio. I think he has overstepped his bounds and he should be called to order.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Dayo. Let's just end this with Mr. and Mrs. And speaking first today is Mr. I can see Mr. is even with different accessories, with chain, with hand chain, with glasses. And it says these things happened in Owambe parties. Those ladies chose to wind their waist in front of us. How is that our fault? Mr. replied, so you and your randy, Mrs. replied, so you and your randy friends didn't have better things to do at the party than to waste your time staring at expired waste.
Ah, wow, what is that?
That's
a big shot. But then again, Mister, I can't blame him. What did God give us eyes for? I mean, we have eyes to look and we see. But this notion of expired, let's not look at expired waste. We want to look at waste that are still current.
Thank you, Mr. Dayo Akitobi, for joining us this morning.
Pleasure is always all mine. Thank you.
And of course, the publisher of Ilukweji Today, Lekki Today, and Ikeja GRA Today. He just reviewed and analyzed some of the stories on the front pages with us this morning. And to get more of our top stories, you can follow us on all our social media platforms showing on your screen. On Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. Our WhatsApp number is also displayed on your screen. My name is Damlola. Enjoy the rest of your day.